Teacups, and welcome to the final episode of Vlogtober 2021. Today I am going to be reading your personal scary stories, and this is actually a part 2, so if you haven't seen part 1, I'll have it linked down below. And also, happy Halloween! Today I am dressed as a Slytherin because today I am being Narcissa Malfoy. Let me know in the comments down below what you are being for Halloween, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get into these stories. This story is really not that scary, but still bothers me a little bit because I've heard that dogs can see and feel spirits and all that. So this happened maybe 2 years ago. I was working a summer job and I came home to have lunch since my house was like 5 minutes from my job. I remember starting to cook something and I had my dog, a Labrador Retriever, next to me. She's the sweetest. All of a sudden, she just stands up and starts staring at the wall and barks. It's not really unusual for her to bark. She normally barks at the mailman and anyone she doesn't know. But this time, it was different. Like, her bark was violent and she wouldn't stop. So I just opened the screen door and she went outside on the patio. A few minutes later, I called her to come in again and she wouldn't. That was so weird because she always wants to be inside. Then whenever I called her, she would hear me but refused to look inside. I honestly don't know if she saw anything, but she was so scared. I do believe that animals can see things that we cannot see, and I think I said that in the part 1 of these scary stories, but yeah, I definitely think that animals have a very strong sense of everything. So now I really want to tell a story of something that also happened 2 years ago, but this happened to my uncle. So it's very normal and a tradition for my family to go on vacation together. We are a big family, so it's always complicated to find apartments near each other, so normally we just end up getting a big house for all of us. That's what happened 2 years ago when we went on a summer vacation. We stayed in a big rustic house that was connected to an old chapel. Now, this chapel is important to the story, so I'm just going to try and explain how this house was. There was a long hallway, and the bedrooms were on the left and the right side of the hallway, and the chapel was at the end of the hallway. There was a wood door that connected the house to the chapel. I'm going to attach 2 random photos from Pinterest just to try and show you what it looked like. I'll attach the photos for you guys to see. When the person who rented us the house first showed us the house, he said he didn't want anyone going into the chapel and he locked the door. We did not have the keys to open it, and we had no intention to do it anyway. So on this random day, my family and I all left early to go to the beach, but my uncle and my aunt stayed behind because my cousins were still asleep. When we came home, my uncle was like, "I just had a paranormal experience." He proceeded to tell us that maybe an hour after we left, he heard someone knocking on the door. And my aunt told him to go answer because it could be the man who rented us the house. Maybe he needed something. So my uncle went to open the door, and there was no one there. All of a sudden, he hears another knock, but on the door at the end of the hallway, the one that connects to the chapel. He said that he thought that maybe he took too long to open the front door, so the man went to knock on the other door. He couldn't open the door because it was locked, but he responded like, "Who is it?" And no one answered. He turned his back and was leaving, and he heard another knock. He said, "Who is it?" And no one answered, so he looked through the people on the door, but there was no one there. He turned his back again to go to his room, and he heard the knock again. He then was just like, "What the heck is going on?" and decided to go to the bathroom that was on the left of the door. The bathroom had a window that opened to the chapel, so he just opened the window and looked inside the chapel, but again, didn't see anything. This was so weird, and I remember being so spooked after he told us that. So that's it. I have a lot of stories, honestly, but those are the ones I remember most. And I had to tell my uncle's story because I feel like for some reason, I'm always the one hearing stuff. This time, it was my uncle's turn. I love those stories. Thank you so much for sending those in. Hi Abigail, my name is Crystal and I have a spooky/weird story for you. This happened about 10 years ago, shortly after I graduated high school. I live in Miami, Florida, and my best friends and I would often go to abandoned places on the weekends for fun. This night, we had decided to check out a place nicknamed the Silos near the Everglades. It was a warm night, as usual in the fall time here in Florida, and we were excited to check out this so-called creepy abandoned place. We had heard other people frequently talk about the Silos, and many former classmates had gone to these abandoned buildings, which some claimed even had a room completely littered with spoons. It might have been just a rumor, but we never even made it as far as to find out if it was true or not. We found two other friends who were willing to take the hour-long drive down to the Everglades with us, and we were off for the night. Upon reaching our destination, my friend Sonia and I strapped on our backpacks and headed out onto the dark paths lined with mangroves, with the boys leading the way. We chatted while walking along, stopping here and there to check out the water near the mangrove trees to see if we spotted any alligators. About 30 minutes into our walk, we could see the abandoned Silos buildings in the near distance. I was surprised we hadn't yet crossed paths with any other people because this was a pretty common abandoned place that teens and other young adults would go to. We walked a few minutes more, talking and laughing the entire time, when I suddenly heard a sound. Everyone, be quiet. Shh, did you hear that? I swear I just heard someone breathing. Up until this point, the only noises we had heard were crickets and the soft lapping of the water on the sides of the paths. Stop, Crystal, you're just trying to scare us, one of the guys said, but I heard it again. The huffing sound like someone was breathing heavily. I just got goosebumps. No, seriously, I hear someone breathing hard. It sounds like it's coming from one of the bushes ahead, I said. I hushed everyone again, and this time they quieted down and listened. I followed the sound of the heavy breathing towards a bush that was at the corner of a fork in the path ahead. I got closer and the breathing sound intensified. I was about 2 feet from the bush when it suddenly burst into flames. What? I screamed, and without thinking, we all turned and started running back the way we came. Sonia and I were in front, with the two boys sprinting behind us. We never looked back to see what had happened, why the fire started, or why we had heard that breathing. After running for a few minutes, we slowed down to a quick-paced walk. What's even weirder is that on the path back to where the car was parked, I randomly found my ID card on the ground, but I had never once opened my backpack or took out my wallet. So that's my story about the abandoned Silos. No one believes my story about the breathing, random fire, or finding my card on the ground for no reason. Here's a link to some information on what the Silos actually was before it became abandoned if you are interested. Oh, that's really cool. I will link that down below in case you guys want to do further research on that. But oh my goodness, that is insane. Hi Abigail, as a fellow cat lover, I thought you might like this story. My cat is my best friend and we spend a lot of time together. The other morning I was getting ready for work and I rushed into my bathroom, not bothering to turn on the light. My cat Mozart, oh I love that name, was sitting on the bathroom sink. There was nothing unusual as he loves for me to turn on the water faucet so that he can get a drink. I reached into the linen closet and quickly grabbed what I needed. As I turned to leave the bathroom, I noticed that Mozart was staring in my direction with a look on his face that I can only describe as spooked. He is a very expressive cat, and the look that was on his face was one that I have never seen before. I looked at him for a few moments, and while he was looking in my general direction, it was almost as if he was looking past me or through me at something behind me. I quietly said his name, and he took a small step away from me. Clearly, whatever he was looking at was scaring him, and I don't think that it was me. I reached out my hand to him, and as soon as he sniffed my fingers, he snapped out of whatever trance he was in as if it had never happened. I had not bothered to look around me or behind me, and as I am a strong believer that animals can see things that humans cannot, I am glad that I didn't. Who knows what my cat was actually looking at that morning, but whatever it was, he sure gave me a spooky October scare. Love your channel and all your adventures. Happy Halloween. Hi Abigail, how are you? I wanted to share a spooky story with you. So my sister and niece used to live in this old Victorian house that was converted into apartments. At the time, my niece was about 2 years old. This was a small one-bedroom apartment, and the bedroom was right off of the tiny kitchen. My niece started telling my sister that she was scared to go in the kitchen because of the old man. No, no. My sister asked her to describe what he looked like and what he was doing. She said he was tall and he was going through the drawers and cupboards. Before my sister lived there, a close friend of our aunt had lived there a couple years prior. My aunt just so happened to share the story of my niece seeing an old man in the kitchen, and her friend was in complete shock. She said she saw the same old man dressed in clothes from the late 1800s, rummaging through drawers in the kitchen. So my sister couldn't just brush it off as my niece being a kid and just imagining seeing someone. Not when my aunt's friend gave the same exact description. So as you can imagine, my sister ended up moving out of the apartment shortly after that. Happy Vlogtober, Melissa. That is so creepy how two people saw the same exact man, and I wonder what he was looking for. Oh, that is just, some things cannot be explained. That's one of them. Hi Abigail, watching your last Spooky Stories video reminded me of a story of my own. When I was in college, I lived in an old house with 4 other girls. I don't know why, I already have goosebumps. The house had a basement, but none of us ever went down there except to do laundry. The basement was divided into 2 halves by a large pegboard wall with a latched gate. It seemed to have been used as a workshop many years ago. On the other side of the pegboard was another door, which opened to a tiny room that seemed to be trapped in the past. Inside this tiny room, everything was made of wood. There were boards nailed unevenly to the wall, old wooden cubbies, and a dilapidated workbench. One morning, when only 3 of us were home, we heard a noise that sounded like it came from below. My housemates and I went down to investigate. Oh, you guys are brave. We saw that the pegboard gate and the door beyond it were both open. We started calling our other 2 housemates' names to see if they were down there playing a prank on us. We got no response, so fearfully and reluctantly, we walked through the open gate and into the tiny room. Oh my gosh, no. And nothing. No one was there. We rushed back upstairs and began checking all of the doors and windows of the house. Everything was locked. No one could have gotten in without a key. So we phoned the 2 housemates who were away for the weekend to make sure they hadn't come back and that they hadn't been downstairs before they left. They both insisted they were out of town and had not opened the basement doors. Throughout the day, whether it was paranoia or reality, we continued to hear strange noises. My friends went out to run some errands and I was home alone. Oh gosh. I was sitting in the living room reading when a pan in the kitchen fell out of the cabinet and crashed to the floor. I immediately ran outside. I was not staying in that house alone. I called my housemates and told them what happened, begging them to come back home. I sat on the porch until one of them returned, and then we assessed the situation. The housemate who was with me was a Catholic theology major. She suggested that we cleanse the house and recite a prayer designed to ward off spirits. But we'd need to gather some materials first. So the next day, I was at church with my best guy friend, who is now my husband, and I told him what had happened and explained the cleansing that was planned. He offered to come over for support. When we arrived, my housemate had purchased a sage bundle, and the 3 of us, my housemate, my now husband, and myself, walked all through the house with the burning sage, reciting the prayer. We began on the 2nd floor and worked our way to the basement. When the bundle was burned up and the last words were recited, all 3 of us clearly heard footsteps upstairs, and we heard a door close. We all looked at each other. We knew at the time we were the only 3 inside the house. We sprinted up the steps to see if anyone had returned home and quickly called all the housemates to see if anyone had entered or exited the house. No one had. No one living, at least. Happy October. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for all of your stories, guys. And I am so sorry if I didn't get around to reading your story. There were quite a few and I'm properly spooked. Like, I'm very scared. I need to watch a comfort movie now. So I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope you have a very fun Halloween. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye!